Well, I'm Lopez. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Steve Lopez. Steve, are you ready to do this?
I think I'm ready.
All right, we will give it a shot. Steve is a longtime columnist for the Los Angeles Times. He's the recipient of more than a dozen national journalism awards. He's a Pulitzer Prize finalist, best-selling author of The Soloist. His newest book is Independence Day: What I Learned About Retirement from Some Who've Done It and Some Who Never Will. Steve, tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and what motivated you to put pen to paper for the new book.
Well, my personal life, I'm a California native, grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and didn't really know what to do with my life. And I remember a community college counselor saying, "Okay, you're done here. What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Do you have any interest?" And I said, "I go to a lot of ball games and I kind of like to write." And she said, "Well, you should be a sports writer. That's what they do."
Mm.
So I got a journalism degree at San Jose State University about 150 years ago. And I was a sports writer briefly for like 2 years. And a job opportunity came up at the Oakland Tribune. It was night rewrite. It was sitting there waiting for a horrific story, a murder, a deadly accident, or go to a school board meeting or a protest. And it was a great education. I decided I want to stick to news. So since that job at the Oakland Tribune, I've worked for 6 newspapers and also for Time and Time Magazine and Sports Illustrated. I landed in LA about 20 years ago to write a column, and I'm still doing it. And I live in Pasadena with my wife. We just dropped our daughter off at college, and that's my story.
Well, congratulations on a daughter in college.
Yeah. I'm a little too old to have a daughter in college, but it's okay.
Well, life is a funny thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. And so, as for the new book,
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of years ago, I was giving some thought to retirement. At the moment, right now, I'm almost 69. And so a couple of years ago, I was thinking, okay, do how long do I want to do this? And should I step away now to do some of the things that I always thought I'd want to do and never got around to it? So I've been in this business of journalism for 50 years, and I'm really, really lucky because I love the work. But I'm having some of the same health considerations that my parents had at the same age. And my big fear was and continues to be, what if I wait too long to retire? And when I finally pull the cord, I don't remember my wife's name, or I don't, I'm not in good enough shape to hike, the Himalayas or whatever it might be. And I thought maybe now is the time to think about what to do, how much longer to hang on. And my book agent David Black said, "Well, that's probably a book." And I said, "Why is that a book? Why would any?" He said, "You take a year, you interview people to figure out what you're going to do, and then write a book about it." And I said, "Why would anybody care when, or whether I would retire, outside of a few loyal readers?" And he said, "Because everybody is talking about this. The sandwich generation is talking about how to help their parents through this right now. And people my age are thinking about, well, if I do it, am I going to be financially secure enough to enjoy the things I always thought I wanted to do? And how do you handle the identity part of it? My job for most of my half century career has been quasi public. As a general interest columnist, I'm supposed to weigh in on the issues of the day. It's kind of like a running conversation with LA, the way I had it in Oakland and the way I had it in Philadelphia. And you're kind of required to be engaged, and you're inspired by the people who do engage and give you their ideas and their hopes, their dreams, their fears. Lately, a lot of complaints. And I'm just wondering, and the book really explores, who am I when I walk away?
mhm.
And have I maybe idealized that those long walks on the beach, or taking up flamenco or whatever it is I think I've wanted to do. And some of the people that I interviewed said, they had good advice. Like most of the people in the book are ordinary people, but I also interviewed two guys in their 90s who are still hard at work. One is Mel Brooks, and one is Norman Lear, who I think most people know has produced, some of the greatest, most successful television comedies and also a lot of movies. They're in their 90s and they're still working. And they asked me, well, as a writer, how long do you think it is that you're going to be in Barcelona studying, language and cooking and music before you want to write about it, before you want to call your old boss and say, hey, I could do a travel piece, or before you think it's a book. So their argument was, given what I do, it's kind of a curse, and I'm always going to want to do it in some form. So maybe what I needed to think about, rather than just jump out of that plane and never look back, what kind of hybrid models are there? And I think we're in a time right now when there are a lot of hybrid models and a lot of opportunities for people to try new things, to consider flex time, to maybe decide they don't like retirement and go back to work in some form. So the book explores all of those things.
How long did it take you to write?
Well, it was set up so that I began on July 4th. And as I began writing, the idea was completed on the next July 4th. And it was a 1-year kind of a deadline to give the book a TikTok element. I got to figure this out. And when I started writing on the first July 4th, I emailed my book agent and I said, what about if we call it Independence Day? Here I am, the fireworks are exploding all around me in my backyard in LA, and I'm writing about, that day when you're free. But what does freedom even mean? So it took 1 year to write, and then, a couple months with the edits, and here we are, ready to roll.
Love it. Did it work out the way you expected?
Well, you know what? Throughout the course of the year, I took a couple of turns. I would say that I began not really knowing how it would end, and not sure that I knew how I wanted it to end. I was just open to listening to people and really sorting out the advice I got. I met with a rabbi, I met with a priest. I talked to people who were happily retired, miserably retired, never going to retire, couldn't wait to retire. And halfway through, which would have been January, I really wasn't sure. And then something happened that began to turn me. And it turned me in more than one direction. I got an email as I was going to bed one night from somebody telling me that a friend had died, a friend of mine. He had been a long-time city official in Los Angeles, and the email said, cardiac arrest, paramedics went to his house, it was too late, and he's gone. And Tom is his name, and Tom was just about exactly my age. And Tom had stopped working 4 or 5 years earlier. And I thought, geez, he retired. That's what I fear, is retiring and not getting enough time to do all of these things I want to do, which I would like to think will take longer than 4 years if I'm in good enough shape. So when I got that news, my first thought was, I got to quit today. I got to call in tomorrow and say I'm done and go and do these things, rather than wait too long and never be able to. And the more I thought about it, Tom was somebody who, even more than myself, his identity was wrapped up in his work. He was an elected official. He was a problem solver. He had done it for, nearly half a century. And he didn't really find another way forward after leaving. So I went from thinking I've got to quit to, who am I going to be? And am I going to have those same problems reinventing myself, feeling engaged, relevant, feeling like I matter? One of my muses in this book is Nancy Schlossberg, in her 90s in Florida, somebody who has studied transition. And, she said, you got to have a plan. You can't just walk away thinking you're going to handle it. And so I went from thinking within a matter of a month or two that I was definitely going to retire to I couldn't imagine myself completely retired. So then I started thinking in the next 6 months about what kind of model is there for some kind of a hybrid, notion of work.
I appreciate that. These are big things to be grappling with.
It's and I don't know that you're ever done grappling with them. I am, as we speak, I am 1 year into this. I'm 1 year into what I decided was to go hybrid, to cut back, and so that I could, as Mel Brooks had advised me. So you like work, right? And I said, yeah, I like it. And he said, but you like the idea of going somewhere for 6 months at a time. I said, yeah. And he said, then go to the editor of the LA Times and say, I like this and want to keep doing it, but not so much. And so the deal I worked out was, to have 3 months off, with the possibility of, after a year, maybe taking 6 months off, and then maybe taking even more time off, and kind of, small steps into full retirement. But, I've also liked writing books, and, I might want to do what a lot of people do, which is to, I don't know, pick a cause that you like and volunteer or serve on the board. So there are so many options that I continue to consider, even a year after I made up my mind about what I wanted to do. In some ways, I'm still making up my mind about what next. And I don't have all the answers, but that was something that Nancy Schlossberg told me. She said, you'll never have it entirely figured out. It's kind of an evolving, idea of figuring out what to do now and what to do tomorrow. Norman Lear was quite the philosopher. And what is he? He just turned 100 years old. And when I talked to him, he was so busy with work. It was hard to schedule the time with him. And his advice was, this sounds maybe a little bit too obvious, or I don't want to use the word whiffy, but he said, live in the moment. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm trying to make a decision about what to do with all of the moments that are left. How do you live in the moment? And he said he likes to think of it as these two words govern his daily activities: over and next. And he said, what you did yesterday, last year, really is done. It doesn't matter for much. And it's all about what's next. And your life, imagine yourself swinging in a hammock between what's over and what's next. And if you wake up in the morning, as Norman Lear does, and are motivated to get to the computer, to begin refining this idea you have about the story behind a sitcom that you're pitching or a movie, then you get up and you do it. So why worry yourself with trying to figure out the rest of your life, rather than just keep following motivation, inspiration, instinct, and just get through each day and then start over. So, I mean, in some ways, that was pretty good advice.
A lot of wisdom. In terms of your career, your 50 years of being a journalist, of being a writer, was that did you write every day? And is that a muscle that if you stop using it, that you're worried will atrophy?
I never wrote every day, but I would say that every day for 50 years, I've thought about what I'm going to write next. It's like there's no vacation from the pressure of coming up with something, with trying to keep readers guessing, with trying to deliver. And that was something that I examined in the book. I might not have a column in the paper for 3, 4, 5 days, and people would get the idea that I'm not working those days. I'm working just as hard as on the days that I'm writing and getting something published in the paper. And I started to think that exactly what you just suggested, that my mind was automatic and didn't know what a break was. And early on in the book, we took our first pandemic vacation, my wife and daughter and I. We went a couple hours south to a little seaside community, and we weren't there more than a few hours before I saw something and I thought, hey, that's a column. And I emailed my editor, who said, you are allowed to take vacations. And I I said, but this could be really good. I mean, this is something I've been writing about, and I don't know. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try to call this doctor who had a blog post about COVID and about precautions. And if he's available, then I'll run over and interview him. And you're on vacation. You're on vacation. And I said, but if he doesn't answer, if he doesn't return the call, then I'll just enjoy the rest of the vacation. All I could think about was getting hold of that doctor. And I ended up interviewing the doctor, interviewing the mayor of this town, couldn't wait to get back and begin working on that column. And when I was done, I thought this may be my fate. This may be my trap, that I'll always see things that interest me and always want to go and act on those ideas. And I wonder if I'm capable of ever retiring. And even when I'm no longer writing a regular column, am I going to be retired in my mind, or am I going to be kind of tormented by all of these things I see and be tempted to run back to the nearest laptop and start writing? And those are questions that I don't yet have the answers to. I guess when I move more into a leisurely kind of phase, I'll find out who I am in that regard. But I don't know that we've got to have it all figured out. And it's nice to still have surprises and some variety, right?
Amen. So when somebody picks up the book, what are you hoping that they get out of it?
I hope that they, first of all, I hope that they think about, I hope that they make sure not to do this kind of willy-nilly. I hope that they think about whether their ideal retirement activities and routines align with their financial resources. Because there's a chapter in the book about a gentleman who was retired and prepared to travel the world. He lost some of his investments in a crash. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he ended up in his mid-70s working as a checker at a big box discount store. So people, this maybe sounds pretty obvious, but you got to make sure that you have done the right financial planning. You have to, I think, consider the possibility that all of your relationships will change, that your relationship with your children, with your mate, with your colleagues, your former colleagues, your relationship to the world around you and to the issues that you care about will change, because you're going to be in a new role. And you can't imagine how all of that will work out, but it's not a bad idea to start thinking about those things. And the rabbi, Naomi Levy, gave me some really good advice. She said, if you think you're going to retire and take cooking classes and guitar lessons and get fluent in Spanish, you may find that you're not built for any of that, that you're built for structure. So you either need to have those things very structured in your retirement plans, or better yet, if you're going to cut back to part-time, begin to experience them now, so that you know it's really something that you need more time for to pursue. And so I've been doing that. I've been playing the guitar for an hour every day with some of my added leisure time to make sure that's something I want to pursue. And I found out that I really, really love that time and want more time to study music. So those are good tips for people. And I hope that although I can't tell anybody when retirement time is right, that the book is a bit of a roadmap. It's what kinds of decisions do you need to consider about, I think maybe the most important one is, how are you going to matter? We all want to matter. It could be to your cat. It could be to your grandchild. It could be to the board that needs your input because you're bringing some expertise to the next meeting of the nonprofit administration. But I think you need to find ways to matter so that you don't make the mistake of doing little more than sitting on the sofa watching ads for geriatric medications.
Well, I think that's really well said right there. Love it. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage? Where can they get a copy of Independence Day? What I learned about retirement from some who've done it and some who never will.
I can be reached on Twitter at LAT Steve Lopez. Anybody with questions about retirement or stories about retirement, please email me at steve.lopez@latimes.com. The book is now, you can find it for pre-order at Amazon, or you can check your local bookstore because they always need the support. I am also getting going now with freshening up my Facebook and Instagram pages so that I've got a little more of a social media game here, which is a little more difficult maybe for people like me as they approach 70. But come on, I've got to pretend I'm still one of the youngins, and I can move with the rest of them.
That's right. Love it. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Steve your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Pick up a copy of Independence Day wherever you buy your books, or you can go to Amazon and pre-order it. You can find Steve on Twitter. You could shoot him an email, Facebook and Instagram. I will list all of those in the notes of the show. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
And until next time, keep fighting the good fight. We are all in this together.